So in my last Avatar video, I offhandedly mentioned that ATLA's finale was unsatisfying and not in the good kind of way. I'm gonna give a disclaimer. I don't like Aang and I never have since I was 6. For example, I got really angry at him for ripping into Toph for not being able to save Appa, but I was able to excuse Katara for saying,
"Then you didn't love her the way I did."
that. So obviously this video will be colored by 13 years of negative bias, okay? Now the Last Airbender's finale has always been slightly controversial, so at the very least I won't be burnt at the stake completely. As for why it doesn't work for me, it's because of one moral question. So our first issue is that this conflict comes up way too late in the story. The first time it's ever established is at the end of the Southern Raiders, literally the second to last episode before the 4-part finale. Yeah, the writers didn't give a fuck until the very last minute. Just what was the plan on the day of the Black Sun? No wonder "I've certainly never used violence to take a life" became such a meme. Oh, even the tiniest spider fly's life is precious. Here's Aang beheading a bug. Quit the bullshit, this is Legend of Korra levels of bad setup, bad everything. The main issue is that Aang's bullshit ideology is validated. It's common to hear nowadays that Aang didn't want to kill Ozai because he was the last air nomad, and that abandoning their culture of pacifism would truly complete the air nomad genocide. While an interesting idea, it's not an objective reading of the situation, and neither is it supported by the show. Let me explain. So the first time after the Southern Raiders that Aang brings up an aversion to killing Ozai is Sozin's Comic Part 1. During a group session, he can't bring himself to kill Mel and Ozai, and his justification is,
"But it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like myself.
Later on, he once again shares the sentiment.
I can't just go around wiping out people I don't like."
You hear the phrasing. All Aang is thinking about is himself, not his people. Not the world, it's all about him. It's all me, 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 me. People I don't like, Zuko literally revealed to them that day that Ozai is planning on committing yet another genocide on the Earth Kingdom. You know what this reminds me of?
No! Even if we don't agree, nobody deserves this.
He's talking about the Great Diamond Authority. Some of their crimes are colonizing planets, committing genocide on the regular, murdering their own people who come out wrong, by their standards gay, disabled, or otherwise different. So much so that they have a cluster of gems as big as planet Earth, running a caste system and mutilating the bodies and minds of many rebel gems, including the collateral of those who fought on their side. Human rights are not a disagreement. It's not a matter of dislike, and screw anyone who disagrees with that. I'll get back to this point. So Aang runs away in order to avoid his responsibilities again. I literally remember being 7 or 8 and internally screaming at my television when he did that. What happened to his guilt over what happened 100 years ago? I guess Bryke just forgot. Now what happens next would be a great scene if it wasn't for what happened later. Aang calls on his past lives in order to affirm his belief that he hasn't done anything wrong. Roku advises Aang that he has to be decisive in whatever he chooses to do with Ozai. Roku sparing his friend is what started the 100-Year War. Aang has to think about what will happen if he chooses to spare Ozai. Next he calls on Kyoshi. For some reason, she's seen by the fandom as this bloodthirsty savage, despite the fact that she didn't even fight Shin until he was right at her doorstep. Even so, she didn't directly kill him. Just that if it came down to her having to do it, she would. Just like Aang should. Next up is Kuruk, whose go-with-the-flow attitude is similar to how Aang was at the start of the series, constantly taking detours to avoid the reality of the situation. Kuruk's problem is that he remained passive and let everyone figure their shit out. That came back to bite him as he was unprepared to save his wife from Ko. He's saying Aang should be upfront in order to form the destiny of the world. Finally, Yang Chen, best interaction of all. Aang doesn't want real advice. He wants his ego to be soothed, so he calls an air nomad. But Yang Chen says, yeah, you are a selfish fuck. Aang pulls the Le Monks card. But remember the Southern Raiders? It was proven that they aren't always right. That Aang's black and white worldview is wrong. As Yang Chen says,
but the Avatar can never do it. Because your sole duty is to the world. Here is my wisdom for you. Selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs and do whatever it takes to protect the world.
This is what makes Aang finally come around to the fact that Ozai must go. What happens next is an absolute disgrace. A Deus Ex Machina, which translates to God from the Machine, is a plot device where something comes out of nowhere in order to solve an unsolvable problem. For example, in the play Medea, the god Helios provides Medea with a chariot in order to aid with her departure. However, even that is more justifiable than Avatar's bullshit. Helios is Medea's grandfather, why wouldn't he help his granddaughter? Lion Turtle, now that That is a Deus Ex Machina to end all Deus Ex Machinas. We do get an image of that thing in the library, but it's not that the line turtle exists, rather that they can grant someone the skill to permanently strip someone from their bending. Aang doesn't even have to master energy bending or even train to use it, he can just use it perfectly from the get-go. The ultimate lesson here is run away and whine hard enough until the world hands you a solution. You know, a problem I have with fans today is the blurring of headcanon and canon, as well as the absurdist dogma. Fans' attachment to their media is what they want it to be and not what it actually is. Hence the notion that Aang wasn't a selfish jerk in the finale, despite everyone rightfully treating him like he is. There's that stupid thought-terminating cliche meme template that goes around, which I'll show on screen here. Aang shouldn't have to be the one that kills Ozai, the world should be able to save themselves, which is an interesting idea that I'll get to. But Aang is no normal 12-year-old, he's the Avatar. The Avatar's a concept is like if a monarch couldn't abdicate the throne. Even if someone was forced into a position of power, we would never excuse him if they were bad at it. He has the power of thousands of people at his fingertips, the power of all four elements. He's already had to do his avatar training in a couple of months, and besides, isn't the entire show about him taking responsibility? I agree that expecting Aang to kill Ozai is a dumb plot point and core levels of vague as a concept. Why is it a necessity? Oh, I also want to debunk the idea that heroes can't kill the villains in a kid cartoon. It is objectively not true. Lollyrock had our heroes kill the villain on screen, The Secret of Nim too. There was whatever the hell Redwall was, and even the Last Airbender's own franchise had the heroes kill the villains on screen. It's perfectly fine. People act like the TV Y7 rating is the equivalent of a preschool rating. People also say that Aang taking Ozai's bending away is a far crueler punishment than killing him. The idea exposes the cognitive dissonance present in the franchise, also because air nomads aren't just against killing people but violence in general. A cooler option would be just as much of a supposed cultural genocide as killing Ozai. My idea would be that Aang had to sacrifice his own ideals to save the world, but dedicates himself to rebuilding the airbenders who won't have to kill or use violence because he's ended the war. I want to get back to this point later, but first I want to talk about the trolley problem. So the trolley problem has that 4 people are strapped to train tracks. The trolley is headed towards 3 people. We have the option to save those 3 people if you direct the trolley onto one, killing them. At first blush, Ozai appears to be the single person and the world is the other people. There's the utilitarian option, do whatever causes the least harm or maximizes happiness, which would be directing the trolley onto Ozai. However, there's another philosophical question. You know that whole Spider-Man quote?
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, if you have been given the power to do something and choose to do nothing, are you thereby responsible for the deaths of those 3 people? Because in actuality, the one person on the track isn't Ozai, it's Aang. Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring political philosophy into this. When you have the absolute Queen Kyoshi using Martin Luther King,
Only justice will bring peace.
and Malcolm X's quotes,
But I assure you, I would have done whatever it took to stop Chin.
you certainly invite that discussion, especially since they were both heavily critical of the white moderate, such as Brian and Mike. And I myself already have one video discussing how their politics harm their stories. I'll start with that infamous Margaret Thatcher quote. I think we have gone through a period when too many children and people have been given to understand, I have a problem, it's the government's job to cope with it. Or I have a problem, I will go and get a grant to cope with it. I'm homeless, the government must house me. And so they are casting their problems on society, and who is society? There's no such thing. There are individual men and women, and there are families, and no government can do anything except through people, and people look to themselves first. Thatcher was kind of a pioneer of neoliberalism, which the franchise subscribes to. That whole me whining that Aang did was an example of individualism, one of the main cores of the political ideology. The idea that people in powerful positions don't actually have to help the people that they preside over, and that whatever bad things happen to the citizens are not the government's fault. A current example that I can relate back to Avatar is the killing of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, also why people want Luigi Mangione free even if he did do it. The American healthcare system is absolutely barbaric. Like 1/3 of all US citizens are in medical debt. Fact is, when people can't afford life-saving medical care and these insurance companies purposefully deny them that healthcare, these insurance companies are responsible for the deaths of these Americans. They may not have pulled the gun at them, but when they had the power to save someone, they chose not to. This may not be criminal by law, but by the people it is. Murder by inaction is still an action. But honestly, choosing not to do something is a form of action. I don't subscribe to
I won't kill you. But I don't have to save you.
like Aang watched Sokka kill Combustion Man, like he was right there. It kind of sounds like Aang would be just fine with Ozai dying as long as it wasn't directly by his hand.
Is that okay? As a matter of fact, it isn't.
Because honestly, Aang to an extent doesn't give a fuck about actually doing the right thing, just that he feels like he's in the right. And to truly be righteous, you have to sacrifice your ego, your pride. You have to direct that trolley onto yourself, and Aang is not ready to do that. Earlier, Aang brings up redeeming Ozai so he doesn't have to kill him to end the war. Not because he sincerely believes everyone deserves a chance for rehabilitation, but so he can avoid the outcome of his inaction. He speaks about unnecessary violence, but places Ozai in a dingy cell without trial for life, where he faces solitary confinement, possibly the worst torture method to put our prison population through. Let's not even forget that Aang permanently disabled him. Presenting this as the kind alternative to killing is fucking ridiculous. Don't tell me it's a unique punishment reserved for Ozai either. Technically, he wasn't alive then. The Red Lotus gets punished to that severe degree as well. Violent prisons we see in the show aren't treated as bad because they strip people of their basic human rights, because good people are in there. And if you think that it's okay to treat people like that because they're criminals, let's not forget that morality is relative. LGBT people are considered criminals in a lot of places. Tyrants, they can brand anyone they want as criminals. There's also the matter of societal issues that lead to criminality, like take Republic City for example. It's swarming with crime, poverty, unemployment. These last two exacerbate the former. I think I'll make a video later this year ripping apart that imbalance comic, but in there, unemployment has skyrocketed as a result of machines making vendors obsolete. Also, they pay their employees a lower wage too. This leads to uprising, and Aang's solution is to invent police brutality. He does not care to address the systematic issues that make criminals, because these issues are 100 times worse by chorus time. When it comes to the choice between violent and non-violent, Aang consistently chooses the violent option every time. Let's not forget the promise. Aang brings up the apartheid in the colonies all of one time, not because he actually cares to stop it, but because of some weird racial purity stanch, which doesn't make a lick of sense given that he's an air nomad currently dating a water tribe girl. I mean, hypocrisy is the name of the game, given that the eponymous promises him agreeing to kill his best friend in less than a minute if he steps out of line, as in if he challenges Aang's ego in any way. I say he doesn't care to stop the apartheid because that's factually true. I made a whole video explaining how the solution at the end would fuck over literally everyone but the Fire Nation elite in the colonies and outside of the colonies. You know, making this video has radicalized me. The Red Lotus's chaos ideology may be stupid and a total strawman, but you know what? The Avatars should die. They're literally born with the power of hundreds embedded in them. At the end, they're meant to become an unchallengeable monarch. Like, imagine if the Avatar was born into the Fire Nation. Like, the other nations would be cooked. For Aang, as long as he doesn't have to face a problem, it doesn't exist as far as he's concerned. He's a naive 13-year-old brat with the power of God on his side. The perfect combination for an unquestionable brat. What a nice character arc. I mean, shit, it was already in the bin from the Southern Raiders. What did I expect? This fucking finale was a harbinger of the shit that was yet to come. That's why nothing can live up to the OG. It's not about whether Ozai should have died. It's really about consistency. But anyways, the real moral question is, who is more of a proselytized and hypocrite? Aang or Steven Universe? Leave your reply in the comments. Goodbye, everyone.